Welcome, Hornets, and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be taking a look at how do we use our calculators in order to solve trigonometric functions. Now, be aware that as we have already identified, we're just working with specific quadrants to find our ratios. Well, similarly, we have to be aware that our calculator can only find functions. And as a result, when we are trying to do an arc, so if I try to do cosine of theta, for example, equals 0.1358 in degrees, I'm going to have to take or divide by the operation. Notice how I leave the theta where it is, and I end up with theta equaling what is called an arc cosine of 0.1358. So when you're working with the calculator, please be aware this is where we're using that cosine to the -1, once again called an arc. Now when you put it into your calculator, you're going to be making sure that your mode is on degree before you begin. Once you've got it on degree, you can then hit your second function cosine, and I'm going to do that right up here. Second function cosine. You'll notice it gives you that cosine to the -1. You're then going to put the decimal in, 0.1358, and you're going to hit enter. And what you're going to see is the decimal answer in degrees. Okay, and you'll notice it gives you quite a big one. We only want 4 decimal places when we're working with our trigonometry. So just be aware of that. Let's see if I can take that off. No, I didn't. Trying to take that line off in the camera. All righty, and it is not working. So the problem then becomes that cosine, because cosine is positive in the first quadrant, but negative in the second, what we end up doing is finding that the cosine answers are always going to be between 0, put our theta here, and 360 degrees. All right? But the calculator can only do 0 to 180 degrees. And this is because of the graph of an arc cosine. All right? So be aware when you do your solving in order to find an angle, you'll only get one. And you're going to have to use your reference triangles in order to find the other two. Let's just remind ourselves what those reference angles were. Here I have them right here. In the first quadrant, the answer is the answer given. And that's going to be the case for both sine and cosine and tangent. But when we try to find a cosine in the second quadrant, you'll notice it'll give me an answer, but I will have to take that answer, find its supplement, which will end up being the reference angle, and then add 180 degrees to it. This will then give me that second angle. Sine works slightly differently. Sine now uses the first and the opposite of the first quadrant, which means that the answers that sine will give you are between -90 degrees and 0 degrees, and this will give you a negative answer. Make sure you can see what I'm writing. And then when we're working with a positive answer, we're going to be looking at 0 degrees up to a positive 90 degrees. And as we've already seen or mentioned, when we get that negative answer, it's actually the negative reference angle. And we're going to have to find the angle by simply adding 360 to it. Once we find that first angle, we're going to have to find the second in the third quadrant, which means we're going to take that reference angle again and add 180. So you'll notice sine requires a lot of a very different work than cosine does. Now, like sine, tangent also works in the first and the second quadrant. The first and the opposite of the first quadrant. So once again, it's going to give us answers that look like this. Now, I'm going to have to continue with this at another time. This was just my introduction, and we will continue with this in the next video. Thank you very much. Be well, take care, and please have a very good and safe weekend. Bye-bye all. Cheers.